So I had the opportunity to have a couple of minutes to film in Norland Library here on CU's campus, and I absolutely love this library. So here we are. Now, hello and welcome back. I'm here today to talk about 49 Buddhas by Jim Ringel. Like a goof, I forgot the book, so here's a photo of it. And let me just tell you, I really enjoyed the book. I do have a few minor, not so much complaints, but definitely a little bit more along the lines of critiques. I feel like while the plot was very engaging and while the storyline overall was interesting, as were the characters, it just was lacking a little bit for me. Now, the story follows Lama Rinzin as he's reborn into a new life and he finds himself on Colfax Avenue as a detective. Very interesting. I was immediately hooked, but I just wish there was a little bit more development with both Rinzin and some of the other characters. That said, I think the development that was there was decent considering it's a relatively short story, and the fact that it's very jam-packed. It's very scene by scene by scene by scene, and I think that's something that I'm just not particularly used to. I'm used to more character-driven stories versus narrative and plot-driven stories. Not that there's anything wrong with that, it's just kind of a personal preference thing that I am more comfortable with. So, getting a little bit more into the story, he's reborn as a detective and he's tasked with solving the murder of a well-known insurance man in Denver. At the same time, he is what is called, and I apologize if I mispronounce this, a bodhisattva, which is basically someone in the Buddhism faith who puts off their own achievement of enlightenment in order to help all beings achieve enlightenment. And Lama Rinzin believes that he can help all beings do this by getting the mystical dorje. Now, everybody says that it doesn't exist, and he's like, no, I know it does, and I know that it shipped in the shipment that ultimately caused the insurance man's death. Or at least it was the setting of his death. But anyway, so the plot was very cool, and like I said, I think I just wanted a little bit more from the characters. I think the writing was excellent. There were so many quotes that I loved, which if you looked out for my blog last week, you'll see that, and I'll include that link down below as well as the link for this week's blog. But yeah, so overall, I really enjoyed the book. I do wish that some of the characters were a little bit more developed. I wish that the interactions between them were a little bit clearer too. It wasn't a lack of clarity like how I've mentioned in the past with vocalization shifts and you're not sure whose perspective you're seeing things from, but there were a few times when I wasn't really sure who was talking. And it's not like I couldn't figure out who was talking based off of context, but it was just a little bit difficult to see, like, are they real or aren't they? Like, is this a metaphor? Is this a metaphorical person? Is this a figment of Rinzin's imagination? It was sometimes hard to tell, which on one hand I think was really interesting and really artfully well done by Ringel, but at the same time, for the more analytical, more literal reader, that was a little bit hard to follow. A really good example of this is Daidyal, who was Rinzin's teacher in a former life. And even some of the people who say that they fought with Rinzin in a past life, they were like, who's this Daidyal guy? I don't remember him at all. That was another thing that I thought was really interesting, was just how the past lives weren't in the past. They talk about time a lot, what is real, what is not, what is emptiness, what is reality. And I think those are just really interesting discussions to have in a book, and I think this is a really good way to bring up those questions. So I definitely recommend the book. I think it was a really interesting read, even if it was a little bit confusing, and even if the characters, they weren't annoying, they were just not as full and vibrant as I was expecting, considering just how complex the story was. But yeah, it was a really good book. I think you do have to be a little bit in a headspace to accept and be open to alternative lines of thinking. For example, since it is based in Buddhism, there are a lot of those lessons, and actually there's a lesson at the beginning of each chapter, and a lot of those concepts that are addressed in the book. And so if you're not really open to expanding your mindset, I feel like it might be a little bit of a difficult read for you. But that said, just based on plot alone, I think it's really interesting. And if you're from Colorado, it's kind of fun because there are some of those Colorado-Denver references. That's really cool. So that's all I have for this week. And I don't have a book. It's not because I was a goof and forgot it. I'm going to be taking most of March off to work on some other projects that have just been sitting on the back burner for a little bit now. But I will be back in April. I don't know what book I'll have yet, but I have a long list of recommendations, and I'm so excited to read them all. So thank you again for watching, thank you for reading my blogs, and thank you to the Hand Valley Courier and Inkberry Books out of Niwot for giving me the opportunity to read 49 Buddhas. It was a really good book, and I think you will enjoy it as well. Thanks.